back. I'm David Waterfall. This is Andrew Barches.
How you doing?
This is part
15?
15, 13, 14, 16.
16.
Part 16. And we're going to continue our discussion about soul families. And we talked about discernment. I think we kind of skipped that. But there's an interesting concept called commerce that I think Andrew's talked about on his radio shows of what that means.
Yes. Soul families share knowledge. Knowledge is experience, and experience is wealth on the soul family level. When one soul can go through an experience and share it with the all of those gain the benefit, and consciousness of that soul family continues to expand and expand and expand. And you can have one version of yourself on one world and another version of yourself on another world, and several other soul family members on other world who all come together in a place of commerce and exchange information, technology, resources, and spiritual wealth, so that they can come together at another point with all of these tools in place and experiences in place to go on a consciousness exploration adventure.
So 3 soul families join together like a tribe.
Yep.
And they go off and
do something
together,
gain that experience as a soul lineage, and then they have the possibility of learning how to extend a contract with a universe or a galaxy, so they become a star.
So that's an aspiration.
Correct. Or a central, a star in the central location, right around the central sun, which would be the highest vibration.
Now that would seem kind of boring. Being a sun, just hot.
You're not just a sun. When a series of soul lineages come together to extend a single contract to a galaxy to become a sun, there's energetic cities inside there, and the suns can physically move like many of the planets can. They invite things in their soul lineage to come and be the center of soul commerce for the solar system and planets that are inviting people to incarnate.
And does this new sun, which is the collection of these soul families, is it gaining wisdom?
Yes. It is gaining wisdom by allowing others into its local reality solar system to gain wisdom and knowledge. And it will need all sorts, the highest of intelligence, the middle intelligence, and the lowest intelligences, to create a sine wave of consciousness that's rotating around a galactic central sun.
And then after a sun, what's the next step?
Creating a galaxy.
So there are more of these soul families that become
can create,
planets or
right.
suns. And so from a galaxy, it would go to...
Well, you only can be a galaxy. You can't create your other universe yet. You have to go to visit all the other universes before you get to create a universe.
So a galaxy then goes from galaxy to galaxy and then joins to larger galaxies, or?
Sort of. There's the Galactic Prime Creator, which is the central sun of each galaxy. You can be a galaxy, but not the central sun. So when you extend a contract for a galaxy, that means a group of soul lineages, which were stars, which were suns, all come together to say, we're going to use our essence to house life that will offer the Galactic Prime Creator to create a central sun, and then soul families will come and with that Galactic Prime Creator make star systems, and we house that galaxy. And as that galaxy's sentience, total sentience, begins to expand, the people that came together to form that galaxy in conjunction with the Galactic Prime Creator and the central sun are expanding their galaxy through consciousness.
So let's say I'm part of a soul family of 12. Is that soul family also a galaxy? Could that wouldn't be one and the same, or that wouldn't?
No, that's more on the micro level versus the macro level. When you're looking at the soul family basics like that, you may have aspirations to reach that, and that may be your theme, that you all do that relatively at the same time.
Right.
Or you all could become, 8 planets in a solar system, or 8 moons, or something to that effect, whatever it is you were able to manifest.
So all the souls are ready for graduation. Those aren't prior planets or suns that came through this experience.
There are people that were planets or stars. Planets. Well, there's no sun beings, full sun beings on our planet now, though in the past there were.
But that wouldn't be unusual for a sun to say, I want to go through the the Earth.
I'll make an aspect and then come through the Earth sun and then incarnate on our world. Yes, another sun from another galaxy.
Is that a typical path, or?
It does happen in intergalactic commerce, but they don't make it well known. Okay.
So is that going back? Is that like going back to school and repeating a grade, or is that doing?
No, it's more like they're recruiting migration patterns from parts of the universe, or reaching out to another universe to say, I need this type of soul. I have this in my solar system now, and I'm willing to trade, and these are all free-willed entities who are willing to go on the experience.
So in a sense, they're if I understand it, by the sun sharing their energy and their wisdom, that's some commerce, and so
Yep.
the exchange is that you also come to my solar system and we'll do a trade.
And we'll do a trade, a free-willed, free sovereign trade, because all those entities want that experience in your place.
Because the vibration, if you will, the wisdom of that being incarnating helps my space, and
Exactly.
so then I'll send my people there. It's kind of like a football.
Yep.
Or basketball, you have the trade. You have the
trade.
star player, and you give 5 for 1.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Interesting. So, getting back to discernment, which was what I promised 2 episodes ago to talk about, discernment is the path towards knowledge.
Discernment is the human linguistics path toward knowledge. The spiritual person, discernment is in your heart space. It's instantaneous and it's not a thought pattern.
Mm-hmm. So when I discern, I'm discerning what my truth is or what the truth is?
What your matrix truth is, and then what your heart's truth is.
The
We're in
matrix,
duality,
the matrix truth in terms of what's being presented to me,
correct?
which could be an illusion,
Correct?
versus the absolute truth of what I know to be true at that point of consciousness.
Or your heart's expression of spirituality that transcends the matrix and allows you to have a linguistics with unlimited vowels and consonants.
So my understanding of truth could be different relative to my soul's development.
Correct.
Which means that truth is all relative to
And
my
subjective.
perspective. And it's subjective.
Mhm.
So there is no absolute truth.
There's only perspective of truth.
Hence your challenge to, when I ask a question, you're answering to my truth.
No, I'm answering to the entire audience's amalgamation of truth because I've lived in every soul family.
I see. And so you're balancing, everyone that's watching this broadcast, you're trying to match collectively
Match.
what that relative truth is, so they're getting the answer, if you will. But another person asking that at a higher, lower perspective might get a different answer.
Correct.
So that they could receive the exchange
Correct.
of
And I'm
information.
maintaining quantum no time so that the linguistics barrier and limitations aren't a limitation or barrier because the vibration, intonation, and energy is of the sacred neutral with the Akashic record, which is an unmistakable sensation to the heart space.
So your words are air blowing over your vocal cords, but in fact the information being shared is at multiple levels.
Correct.
I'm discerning through my ears the words and translating to my concepts, but you're actually giving a no-time definition that could be received in multiple levels
Correct.
across all galaxies and universes.
All sentience observing.
So it's not just me having a conversation. The whole universe is listening into this conversation and receiving a different answer based on the...
Correct, because the universe is collective consciousness in its biggest perspective.
So obviously as you go down the rabbit hole,
It gets deep.
it gets deeper and deeper, and you have to pause,
Yeah.
have lunch,
Mm-hmm.
think about it,
Mhm.
enjoy the experience. So back to discernment. I think in my current life, and I think many others, the media has done a great job of giving the truth, which is their job, but the agendas of the people presenting the truth are not always consistent. So some media is very honest, their intentions very honest, could be co-opted, where other media is very deliberately trying to steer you in one direction. The same in the New Age movement.
Mm-hmm.
The same through all the religions, and I think there's probably a bias that said if it's an Eastern religion, it must be obviously better than a Western religion, because Eastern is so old. But trying to navigate that and trying to figure out, so what is truth and how do I reach that state of alignment is a big challenge. Big challenge. And so how do I, and I know that's not your job, at least I don't think it is, how does a human being discern whether they're being fooled? And maybe that...
It comes to your heart's awareness and how in line your mind and your heart are.
So is it how I feel about it?
It's not feel. When you experience consciousness through your heart and not through your brain, it's an indescribable separation where there is no separation before. You have separation, we have the separation of worlds. Your heart and your mind are separate until you learn the consciousness techniques to make them one and the same.
So they work together.
In synchronicity.
Synchronicity. So there's the mental aspect of organizing the data, and then there's that vibrational piece where you're feeling, do I have everything in order?
And adjust the data to match it.
Adjust the data. So we call that in my work data massaging.
Yep.
And there's an art form, right?
Yep.
You're trying to distill the complex into the simple.
Correct.
So your heart is doing that intuitively.
Correct.
And your mind is like trying to keep track, but at some point the complexity exceeds the mind's ability.
Correct.
Hence the heart, in fact, is probably the supermind, because it actually can take the infinity and break it down into
finite pieces that are decipherable and
digestible. In terms of a feeling of, is that right?
That's just about right. I mean,
yeah, just about.
I mean,
but an approximation, you're close.
You're really close. I mean, it's very, very good that you described it that way. I mean, what I have to add to that, the heart itself is where your soul originated from. When you're a fetus, you start out as a heart with a brain inside the heart. There's actually a piece of brain matter inside your heart.
In the heart.
Like the actual heart. Like when you watch a fetus grow, it is a heart with a brain and a beginning spinal column. And then as the heart grows, the skeleton grows out and the spine grows up and makes a brain. So the brain isn't formed until weeks later, but the heart's there first. There's an actual brain in the heart. So when you reach consciousness exploration and realize that this brain, its energy center, is projected from the heart, everything goes into the ladder of the heart. And therefore, the heart can experience the no time while the brain's still functioning with the data.
In this piece.
Right.
So can you see that?
I can physically see that in streams in front of people.
You can see it, but could I see it without my third eye activated?
Your third eye is always activated. It's a matter of you have the ability to understand the third eye is not just a reception device, but it's a projection device too. Inside your third eye are rods and cones and liquid just like an eye, but what that means is the rods and cones can take the standing wave pattern inside the gray matter, and the gray matter is the projection screen, and the data is in the screen, and just the third eye needs to project energy with intent for the data to come forward, and I would visually see it in this cortex here, as well as when my eyes closed in this cortex here.
So like a heads-up display.
Correct. Inside your psychic perceptions.
And for you, you don't need to close your eyes to see that information.
No, I can overlay it over you because I've mastered that part of my third eye projection.
And so do you consciously pull up the display when you're looking and then drop it when you're not?
At times I don't even have the display active. I can read it without any visual cues.
Because you're using a different part of your...
Correct.
So back to the heart piece then, this piece has a brain as well. Could I see it with a microscope? Or
yes, you can actually find a piece of brain tissue on your heart on a microscope.
And it has science identified that as the brain?
Yeah, science has identified it in every book out there on anatomy and physiology.
What do they call it?
The brain and the heart.
But in the heart, did they say this is the brain of the heart? There's actually a...
No, there's a brain tissue there.
Okay.
That identifies it as brain tissue from the fetus creation.
So I went to Google and I Googled the heart and they mapped everything. I would see this little arrow and saying this is the
Correct.
brain of the heart.
Where the fetus first started. You'd have to look at a chart where the fetus is growing.
And that's where the brain is.
That's where the brain is.
Okay, so the two brains working together. And then how does the throat chakra blend?
The throat is how we translate into our culture. Our contracts interfunction between our brain and our heart. Fine print in our brain, true contracts in our heart. That's the separation.
And so when they come together,
You have limitation or expression.
so discernment is both the perception and the processing.
Correct?
I don't need to disseminate. I could be a hermit and I could understand truth, but the throat chakra allows you to share truth.
With vibration from the heart as part of a projection.
So I could create disinformation
Yes?
with that projection.
Or you can create true information by projecting no time with it, so the sentience that's receiving that energy understands this is not a violation of free will, this is no time data stream from the Earth Akashic record, and the entity that's reading it is in resonance with the Earth Akashic record, therefore it is truth. And the heart recognizes it truth because the heart is the resonance field that's part of the bioelectric field of Earth.
So I have the ability to discern truth using those abilities. I
Correct.
also have the choice to discern disinformation, or
Correct.
like 99% truth and 1%.
Correct.
And that could be either conscious or unconsciously.
Correct.
Based on the programming or the misperceptions that I have.
Correct.
And ultimately we're all on a journey of understanding what truth is, and so we probably can't be expected to always share what is truth.
Correct.
Could be misunderstood
Mhm.
innocently.
Very much. And many knowledge that was brought here to free Earth was misused and misunderstood by both sides.
So to share misinformation by itself is not lying, unless there's a conscious understanding and an intention to deceive or manipulate you
Correct.
for a particular benefit,
Correct.
for commerce, if you will,
Correct.
a stealing of information.
Correct.
So how does a person discern truth when there are just multiple sources, the internet, we're all saying, I'm true, I'm true, I'm true.
Mhm.
That's overwhelming.
It's a smorgasbord.
Yeah, it's a huge buffet.
And everyone thinks they're the only truth.
I've heard that before, the one-way thing.
Okay? That is the first discernment level. Is it one way? The world isn't one way. It's an infinite amount of ways.
So that's the first checklist.
That's
If
the
someone
first
says that I have the truth, you go, okay, obviously you don't. Move on, next.
Mhm. Well, from the galactic historian perspective, I experience that all the time. That's why I speak the way that I do and project the energy that I do, because I know inside that human body you have a set of receptors that are built into your DNA to identify truth from the Akashic record linked to the Earth Akashic mind.
Mhm.
You just don't have the user manual to pay attention to it. And there are people that have figured out parts of the user manual that are light workers, that are healers, that are dream
Mhm.
protectors. And I know there's enough out there that they can receive the message and then translate it to a message that's a scale down, which will be passed on. That's why it has to be to the highest energy.
So what you're saying is, even though it is very complex, it's a very complex game, that there are people that have discerned the truth and are disseminating that very truthfully,
And broadcasting it omnidirectional through their field.
just by being in their presence.
Correct.
And that it may not be one person broadcasting 100% of the truth, but a collection of people together
Mhm.
create an overlay that provides that truth that you are getting a sense.
Correct.
And that when you're within a community of people that are in their truth, so to speak, that it creates a vibration that allows you to start hearing or feeling
Exactly.
and sensing that something feels right.
Mhm.
So what are some cues that people need to, what is kind of a simple checklist in terms of, as I come into a group that could be called a cult, how do I sense that, no, this is not a cult, these people are totally giving truth, versus they're giving me 80% truth, but they're taking that 20% that's not truthful and steering me into some kind of contract.
Well, that's some of the more details of discernment, and that requires intuition. Intuition is linked to the heart, but it functions through the mind and is part of the senses.
Mm-hmm.
And people can fool the senses really easy. So intuition is one of those heart space things that needs to be regularly used and the rust shaken off it, otherwise you can be easily deceived. So when you use intuition on people and you begin to read people, are they broadcasting everything that you expect them to broadcast?
Mm-hmm.
or are they putting on something fake? I mean, you've walked into a room and you know that, they were just saying something they didn't want anyone else to hear because they're hushed all the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's discernment right there. And then there's another kind of discernment, like a woman's in a bar and a guy goes to hit on her. No. That's a different discernment. That's an intuitive discernment.
Right.
So there's many layers to discernment too.
So everyone really has the ability to read each other.
Yes. It's just a matter if you process it and accept it.
And that you're fully accepting responsibility for your awareness, although it's very easy if you've had a trauma or you've had a difficult childhood that you may block out
Correct.
the feelings because you're afraid you'll be hurt.
Correct.
Or
And I experience that frequently in readings, and that's when I don't push it because I don't violate the sovereign free will of entities. Where others in the light workers will push and push and push till they get the healing.
It's free will, right? So
Correct.
if they're not ready for the healing, it's not. There's no healing if you're creating and pushing a healing. It's not going to stick, or is it?
It can be a school of hard knocks healing.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about healing, you're talking about the removal of a barrier, or the sharing of an idea.
It can be all of that and above and more.
I mean, healing is kind of a very broad topic.
Let's say they're recovering from a car accident,
Mm-hmm.
and a healer is going to, well, let's say, pushing it. You got into your car accident because of this psychic incident, this psychic incident,
Mm-hmm.
this psychic incident, this psychic attack. They kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and that person isn't ready to talk about ghosts. Whether or not he realized, as an example, a guy pulls off the side of the road because he saw a person there, didn't want to hit him, he never saw the person again. That's a ghost incident. The psychic may push and push and push, and his mind's just not ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll wake them up, but that's force awakening.
And what's the
Fear
blowback?
is a result.
Fear is a result.
As part of a habit pattern with that. That's why so many people, first impression of fear, it ends their impression of it forever. They can't explore that topic because they're afraid from the beginning.
And so part of our growth is to uncover our fears and look at our fears as these little treasure chests that hold really valuable information to consciousness.
Exactly.
And that a fear it's just right there. It's a little golden chest just waiting to be opened. And the fear is opening it, when in fact it's kind of, the paradox is that as you open it, you win the prize.
Exactly.
And so what healers do, the good healers, is facilitate that discovery of the treasure chests, and then the courage to open the chest, because what's in there obviously creates potentially guilt, shame, or the fear of that there's going to be guilt or shame.
You got it.
Okay. So it's not complicated.
It just takes time to process it and to use discernment,
Right.
so that you've processed right.
So
It's a different form of discernment.
So it doesn't require a college degree. It doesn't require someone to be highly intelligent in the sense of a high IQ.
Nope.
It just requires someone using common sense in terms of when a situation occurs, are they aware of how they feel about it?
Mm-hmm.
And are they aware of what they chose to do?
Mm-hmm.
Were they aware of the consequence? And then are they willing to repeat that consequence on a regular basis, or choose a different action if that consequence gives them a negative outcome?
Exactly.
And so it's kind of like Groundhog Day.
Yep.
And after a while, you're like, I'd
I've
really
got
like to date that girl, and I keep pissing her off, and so I don't want to stop. I want to stop stepping into that puddle, and so you go take a little bit off to that. Okay. So discernment is not complicated. It just requires a practice, a daily practice.
Slowing information down. The world moves really fast.
Right.
Once you slow it down, that's another layer to discernment. Is knowing when to slow it down, because there's things hidden in it of misunderstanding. They can easily be misunderstood because the data is moving so fast.
And so as you're running, if you think that you have to go fast, then you're actually missing, which is right here, you've gone past it. And so
Exactly.
actually the people that speak slowly, I found, sometimes are the most aware. And that the people who speak fast, and myself included, sometimes you overshoot.
Correct.
And so actually it's not a game of intellect, it's a game of awareness.
Absolutely. It's always awareness and consciousness.
Yeah.
No, it always stems down to that for the value in this universe.
So every human being has that ability
Absolutely.
to discern and become conscious, no
And
matter
sovereign.
and sovereign,
Mhm.
no matter where they are in the scheme, whether you're penniless or you're homeless,
Exactly.
or you're a very smart person in a very important job, or you're a politician. We all have the same path,
Correct.
and there's nothing easier or harder except for dealing with the perceived fear that if I really look at myself and who I am and what I've done, whether I'm able to accept that, and then the commitment, which is your choice, right?
Mhm.
Whether you want to go forward, to act on and do something different.
Exactly.
And free will says you can do the same thing you want in infinity
Hmm.
until you're ready to do something different.
Mhm.
And that's okay.
And that's okay too.
And you can steal as often as you want, and you can do those things, but there'll be a consequence.
Mhm.
But ultimately, when you're done and you realize that the wealth is within inside, then you can choose something different, and you've lost nothing. But
And gained everything.
Gained everything, exactly. So no one's lost anything. People in prison, people have done bad things. The moment of truth is when you realize, okay, that wasn't such a good idea, but I learned so much.
Mhm. Retrospection is one of the greatest human tools.
So no matter my choices, I become wealthy.
Absolutely.
Just choose. Okay. Well, this has been a great episode.
Oh yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you.
That ends. I'm David Waterfall. Andrew Bartz. Thank you for this time with us. Take care.